Matt Mingay gets wild. Some of the pre-race entertainment at Hidden Valley as we welcome you back for round 4 of the championship. Chairman of the Australian V8 Supercar Company, Mr. Tony Cochrane, he's there with the Chief Minister of the Northern Territory, Dennis Burke, visiting some of the drivers on the grid. Remember, there's been a new long-term deal signed for the V8 Supercars to continue to come to the Northern Territory for, I think, the next 5 years, which is great news that everybody in the circus will be coming back up to Darwin because it's a track that the drivers love. There's an enormous crowd that's built up here for today's 2 45-minute races. Hidden Valley, 10 turns, 2.9 Ks, a great little sprint race yesterday. And here is how they'll line up for this event with Russell Ingall on pole and then Marcus Ambrose alongside, making it Holden and Ford on the front row. And then it's a similar situation for row 2 with Mark Larkham and Greg Murphy. Further back, championship leader Jason Bright in 5th, then Paul Radisich. David Bernard is 7th and Stephen Ellery is 8th.
Stephen Richards and Paul Morris into the top 10. Cameron McLean and Larry Perkins out of 12. Jason Bargwanna and Mark Scaife as a result of a stop-go penalty in a race yesterday. He goes right back through the field. Cameron
McConville, Todd Kelly, Tony Longhurst, quite a reasonable run yesterday. Craig Lowndes buried back in 20th after that stop-go. Stephen Johnson had some engine problems yesterday, 21st. Reed Romano, Jason Richards from New Zealand.
Terrible problems there for Bradley Jones in 28. Had an onboard fire yesterday. Did about $15,000 worth of damage when a fuel injector came loose and sprayed fuel all over the car. Those teams, or that team, has worked a miracle to get that car onto the track today. Let's hope they can run through reliably.
There'll be a lot of interest on this man, Mark Scaife, Holden Racing Team, second in the points at the moment. Put the car on pole with a great lap. And here's the man they're all chasing, Russell Ingall in the Castrol Commodore.
Always does a terrific job at Hidden Valley, Russell Ingall, and he was second overall here last year, looking very strong in 2001. Greg Murphy carrying our Kmart in-car cameras. Had a bit of a throttle problem yesterday, dropped him from second down to 4th, but he managed to hang on to a good grid position. Craig Lowndes also earned the wrath of the stewards for a bump with Larry Perkins, got a stop-go penalty, but this man, Marcus Ambrose, carrying the Monroe in-car camera, rapidly emerging as a new hero amongst the Ford ranks, doing a great job at Hidden Valley.
And before we go any further, we've got some hot news from pit lane. Greg?
We certainly have, guys. Paul Radisich is a non-starter in this one. Grid position 6, right behind him is vacant. Paul, what's happened?
We had a fuel system problem and the engine's been running too lean and we've lost all the engines. But I've gone through 2, Stephen 1, and just really disappointed. But, you know, wish Stephen all the best and we'll be up for the next round.
Hard luck, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Well, an amazing frustration for Paul Radisich. Finished 6th yesterday. That's a disaster for the Shell team. There's the vacant space on the grid. So we've got 5 leading contenders with onboard cameras. This is the situation on the Ford race analysis. 35 laps, just on 100 Ks, about 45 minutes. All but a full field of cars. Last year's winner was Mark Scaife. He's down the order today. And can he get back?
Keep your eye on the first corner as we saw in the earlier race.
Trouble yesterday when they squeezed into turn 1. Racing at Hidden Valley.
Just about.
Good jump. And makes a rocket start. Got a good 30 or 40 metres on them as they head down to 1. Murphy slots in behind. Bright's up there as well.
Ambrose and his teammate here. This could be exciting.
Very tight through turn 1. Often you get the squeeze situation like we saw in the highlights package of race 1 where 3 into 1 don't go. But are we through there cleanly? Great start from Russell Ingall.
Great start from the whole field. In fact, looks like they've calmed down from that process yesterday. We had a real tangle at turn 1. Now it looks like it's relatively clean. No problems back in the pack for Stephen Johnson. Is he going to get that gathered up just in time? But he's clipped the back of another car. Tony, no, it's Dougal McDougall.
It's ripped the front spoiler off the front of the Falcon, so that's going to be a drama for Stephen. He'll have to come to the pits to repair that damage. Extensive damage to the brake ducting on the car, maybe a little bit of the radiator ducting as well, and missing the entire front spoiler, which is an important aero aid on the car.
I tell you what, they want to call Paul Houdini after that lot. He managed to escape really well there.
What a shocking weekend for the Shell team. 3 engines, about $70,000 or $80,000 a pop. Then you take the front off that car, the sole remaining car.
I don't know whether you've seen the Aussie dollar lately, Mark, but it's a little bit more than what you're talking about. It's a huge cost for engines now, getting closer to 90 grand for an engine.
So big dollars. DJR, the last thing I need was more damage. Look at this challenge by Marcus Ambrose on Mark Larkham. Great start to the weekend for Larko in the ICS Smart Car. Russell Ingall really has been doing a lot of damage here. This Castrol Commodore is working beautifully around Hidden Valley. There's the new front spoiler, awaiting the arrival of Stephen Johnson, this is going to be a costly error.
Now, the significant thing about the two races today is the length of them. We've never raced for this long in Darwin before. It's the right rear tyre that the drivers and teams have been concerned about through the course of the weekend. They've got to be careful in the way in which they manage the wear and the temperature in this tyre. A lot of damage at the front of Stephen's car. This battle rages between Jason Bright and Marcus Ambrose. Mark Larkham has just skipped away a little bit, but meanwhile the two Holden guys are well off in the distance. Here's the replay. We'll see what happened to Stephen Johnson. He comes shooting out of the pack. He's been triggered there one way or another.
It looks like
maybe the Lansvale car. Very difficult to apportion blame from that angle, and we're not really looking for it. We're just trying to see exactly what happened. But Dougal McDougall gets tagged. Shot might tell more of the story. Oh no, I don't know. Maybe Stephen just got a little hard on the brakes, because I think, if anything, he actually had to lock up to avoid hitting Tony Longhurst.
It's such a difficult situation like that. It's so close, and you've got someone in front, someone at the side, someone up your backside. And
what happens is you get the huge concertina effect as they go into turn 4. This frantic work continues on the shell forward. There's a bit of race tape to try and finish the job off and secure the front of the car. Remember, there's points all the way down through the order at the moment. The way the championship is scored this year, it's different to the year 2000 and previous years. So if you can get back out there, there's points to grab.
Remember, Stephen Johnson is the top-placed forward in the Shell Championship points at the moment. He's third. And he's going to desperately try and hang on to that. But this has done a lot of damage to his points chase straight away on the opening lap.
Standing lap for Ingle was a 1:16. They've now settled down into mid-10s. Last time through, Murphy set the fastest lap of the race at 1:10.6. Rusty's last lap was a 1. Actually, Ingle's just gone quicker, a 1:10.1. So the tyre temperatures and pressures have now normalised as Stephen Johnson comes back out and rejoins a good lap or so down.
It's like Stephen Richards is struggling a bit. He's behind Bernard. He looks like he's getting really impatient.
So the order at the moment, Russell Ingall, not even a second in at the lead over Greg Murphy. Mark Larkham in third. Marcus Ambrose in fourth. Jason Bright in fifth. Then it's Bernard, Stephen Richards, Paul Morris, Mark Scaife up to ninth. So he's made an incredible start. Up 15th or 16th. So he's up inside the top 10, charging through in the Holden Racing Team Commodore. Jason Bargwana in 10th. McLean, Perkins and Lowndes is in 13th, so he's made an equally big charge from 20th. So Lowndes and Scaife really on a charge in the opening laps.
Oh, that's good. Old Larkham's got a new sponsor on the back of his car. Can't be bad.
Here's Mark Scaife, car 1. He's got a big job here, but gee, he's got some speed on board this car. He made an incredible charge through the field yesterday from the back to claw his way up to 16th. Now he's well inside the top 10 already.
He's got the headlights on, and Mark's always paid a lot of careful attention to getting good drive from his car set up, and that's something that would put him in good stead at this track. He looks for a spot down the inside of Morris, but he's braking very late too.
He's going good this weekend, Morris, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been amongst it all through the sessions. So we're watching Scaife heading up towards turn 4. A very fast complex of S's through 2 and 3. Oh, here's a gap, and he makes it stick.
That was a good move.
It was a good move, and it's very awkward to position the cars up there because there's such a huge bump on the approach to 4. Now, one bloke who's joining us in the commentary this afternoon would much prefer to be out there and rubbing door handles and sweating up in the car. As Paul Radisich, what on earth are you doing with us?
Well, I thought I'd come and look at it on a different perspective, and believe me, you guys have got a harder job than we have out on the track. Very disappointing, but hey, we've had a fuel system problem, and it's just been leaning the engine off too much, and we've been dropping valves like hot toast. And Stephen had a problem yesterday, the end of the race, and I had one also go in qualifying, and the warm-up this morning, another one. We just run out of donkeys.
Here's Ambrose getting impatient with Larkham in the braking area for 1, and he gets a little bit out of shape here. He gets the rears locked up temporarily. If he can make it stick on the outside, he'll almost get track position, but no, he loses as Larkham actually takes ground back off him again. Paul, you had a car that was working pretty well in yesterday's race. You didn't qualify quite so well, but you actually got a reasonable race result.
Yeah, we did. We as I said before, we lost an engine in qualifying, and I didn't have a chance to run on the second set of tyres to to bump me up, but the race was going very well. One thing I can add here is, as you know, Neil, very hard to pass. You just got to be really patient, and that paid off for me yesterday. I just sat there, and you know, it's just all about being patient, and today's result will come down to two things: being patient and the pit stops.
Stop-go penalty there for Steve Reed in the Lansvale Commodore. Rick's got more on that.
Just had a word to the officials here. They're calling it a driving infringement at this stage, but given that replay we saw before with that incident with Stephen Johnson, wonder if it's linked to that.
Yeah, well, we made a call that we thought maybe Steve was involved in it, but on second viewing from a different angle, not so sure. And that's one of the difficulties for the officials when they have to make hard decisions in the middle of these races. And it's one of the reasons why they delayed some of the decisions at Eastern Creek. You can't stop the game in motor racing while we all just have a bit of a look and muse over what happened or didn't happen, and you have to gather the evidence. It's a tough job. And Barry and I said in the opening of the Eastern Creek telecast, you wouldn't want to be the umpire for quids sometimes, would you?
Absolutely no way.
Yeah, it's a hard job, but somebody has to do it.
JB in the pits, oh, he's having a terrible weekend.
His car's going real well this weekend. They qualified well, and they've got a brand new car there, and it's been working well. It's just race day's another.
Yeah, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time at turn 1 yesterday, and he suffered for it. So we're on board here with Ambrose, who's still working away at the back of Larkham. This is the battle for third.
Now we're expecting most of these cars to all come in as soon as that lap window opens, which is lap 10, and they'll all come in together. But look at the size of these pit bays. They're tiny. You can barely fit four tyres in here, let alone have enough room to turn in and out. Some of the two-car teams will only pit their cars once at a time, so they can use both bays for the one car. That is the only chance you've got down here in a tight Hidden Valley to avoid being trapped when it all happens.
And the question will be, Grant, whether in fact they do all come in together, because some people are going to have to be very careful in watching the way the traffic peels at turn 10, because the last thing you want to do is actually get in the queue there. And I think you'll find some of the teams might delay it a lap or two until they can get some fresh air, because it'll depend on who you're talking about in the field as to how they unfold the strategy. Gee, Larkham's getting defensive, Paul.
Yeah, he sure is, but it's very hard to pass. So as long as he keeps the line, Ambrose is going to have a lot of trouble.
Pushing hard as they go up into the hairpin turn 5. Lap 8 of 35, round 4 of the Shell Championship Series. This is the first of the longer races today. Russell Ingall leads comfortably at the moment from Greg Murphy, Mark Larkham, Marcus Ambrose pushing hard, Jason Bright, Bernard Scaife and Morris. Further back in 9th place, we've got Stephen Richards, then Jason Bargwana. This looks like it's going to be a great race. Don't go away. Join us after the break. Marcus Ambrose managed to make a good move on Mark Larkham as they came into the braking area for turn 1, and has now moved through into 3rd position and sets off after these two guys in the Holdens up the front. And that's going to be interesting to see whether he can actually bridge that gap. Yeah, it was a wise manoeuvre, Larkham letting Ambrose through, because he was really pushing him hard, and he just went a little wide, let him have the corner, and it's a long race, and it's all about survival.
Well, Paul Radisich might be a retirement from today's racing. The luck in the Ford camp doesn't get much better. JB, what's happened?
Obviously, our luck wasn't carried over from Eastern Creek, where we had a good run, but as soon as I let the clutch out on the start proper, it's broken something in the clutch, which is bizarre, because it was a brand new clutch before we came up here. So it's only done yesterday's start, and as you know, yesterday's race didn't last very long, so just the luck of the draw, mate. We must have got a faulty part or something, but as I said to you a minute ago, that's racing, as they say in the classics. Hard luck, mate.
Major drama here for Craig Lowndes, and he's parked off to the side of the road with steam coming out of that car. It looks like it's up near the pit entry somewhere. I'm not 100% sure where he is. I think it is the pit entry area, and he remains in the car. I have no idea what's happened here. And he's getting out of the car.
It looks like he's hit the fence, but maybe not.
He's actually getting out the left-hand side of the car, so maybe he may have actually collected the fence coming into the pit.
It's
actually coming in too quick, because there's the 60k control. Now we've got a Shell Helix replay. Oh no, there's more to it. Oh no, there's a lot of damage on the car.
Damage on the front left.
No, she's hit the fence all right, but it's hit the fence after it ended up with
front left's hanging off.
Unable to turn the car to get into pit lane.
Wow. So there's more to that story, and there's the back of Rusty's head again. We'll find out the answer very shortly.
No, we won't.
He loves showing the back of that head, doesn't he?
It's probably the best side of him when you think about it.
Ooh, that'll get back.
Oh, Ingle's in.
So they've taken the opportunity to make their stop earlier. See, people haven't actually dived in like we predicted, so they're being mindful of the fact that they need space to operate in the pits, as Grant predicted, and it depends on who you're looking at in the field as to how you unfold your strategy here.
Sorry, Neil.
I'd say it's very important to stop early, because if you do pick up the opportunity or have the bad luck to get a pace car or a yellow flag come out, you can lose everything. So you have to stop relatively early, and then it comes down to making the choice if the pit is congested or not.
Yeah, I suppose the downside of it is, though, in temperature like this and the track the way it is, you've got a set of tyres on that are going to last you for 35 laps, which is downside of it.
Off at the far end of pit lane with a pretty disappointed Craig Lowndes. There's a bent 00 Ford behind you. What happened, mate?
Well, just exiting out of, or coming back onto the main straight, Cameron, I was trying to catch up and get a slipstream with Cameron, and he actually dropped his right wheel off coming onto the straight, got a little bit sideways. And unfortunately, I went around to the right-hand side of him, and then he come back and squashed me between himself and the guardrail. So it's one of those things, from one of those days, goes from bad to worse.
When you say Cameron, you're talking about McLean or McConville?
Cameron McLean, yeah, unfortunately, it's just one of those things, unfortunately.
Hard luck, Craig.
Thanks.
When they made their pit stops, they had a huge hole in McLean's door as he left, as we go on board with Ambrose, and wheel nut disappeared down the road there. It was quickly collected, which was good work. Now, Bright came out in front of Larkham in this sequence of stops just a minute ago. Ambrose, I think, has made a reasonably slow stop there, and that could be costly.
Look at him looking at these.
He's staring at the 60 Ks on the digital readout on the dash. So lap 13 of 35, and he rejoins.
I wonder what you have to do to wipe the smile off a Lowndes' face. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Take his race car from him.
He's a great ambassador for motorsport, and he's always happy, and he's like that all the time.
Yeah, that's significant. You've got Bernard's gone through and Larkham's gone through on Ambrose. Interestingly enough, the new leader, folks, is Mark Scaife, who still hasn't pitted at this stage, and he's been the fastest man on the circuit with a 196. And if he's actually got good track pace, his last lap was a 199. They may leave him out there for a while and try and get some clean air if he's actually got the pace to carry it.
Whichever way you look at it, they always end up being right, don't they, HRT?
It's a hard call, because, for instance, if the yellow flag come out now, he'd really be in trouble, but I'm sure it won't.
And that's what trapped Glenn Seaton at Eastern Creek. But yeah, you're right. The minute you say it, it all comes undone, Paul. That's the problem with sitting here.
I know.
Bargwanna in the Valvoline Cummins entry. Paul Morris in.
They've been going very well this weekend. I think, as I understand it, it's a new car as well, and his qualifying pace was very good.
So the order at the moment, and these guys haven't stopped: Scaife, McConville, Brad Jones after his horror day yesterday with the barbecue under the bonnet of the Aussie Mail Ford. Tony Longhurst, then Jason Richards. New fastest lap on 13 was Russell Ingall, a 195. So he's peeled a 10th off the fastest time set by Scaife, which was a 1966.
These guys are pushing really hard, considering there's a long way to go. And tyre wear out there is pretty rugged, and they're going to, if they keep that pace up, they're going to be struggling in probably the last 7 or 8 laps of the race.
Last lap for Scaife was a 1:10.1. The headlights are still on. He's still got clear road in front of him at the moment.
When you consider there's 20 laps to go, I mean, that is really pushing. That's a high pace.
Yeah, it's a very fast pace indeed.
Oh, they had trouble getting out of second into third there. So let's have a listen on board with Scaife. Bringing him in this lap. The rear brakes here. He nearly went off at the hairpin. 51 degrees is the word from the telemetry, the cockpit temperature in the Mobile Holden Racing Team Commodore.
And Mark's trying like anything to keep his lap times up, and when they say to you, come in, it's easy to relax and say, okay, this is the lap I'm coming in, but that's the lap that you can lose, and the in and out time is so important.
He was lucky not to throw it off the road up there in the valley that time, because the back of the car got out of shape. We saw him catching it. Let's just watch and listen to this. There's Lowndes' car.
Trying to keep it at 60k is yeah,
Goes against the grain, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You need eyes that look in opposite directions, don't you, really?
It feels as though you can get out and run faster. Oh, slippery concrete pit lane. The apron here is concrete. You can see the lane itself is asphalt, so there's a difference in grip. You see him all locked up as he arrived, but he still actually hit the target spot, which was lucky. And away. Pretty good stop. Meanwhile, they're all cranking times out. Ambrose has done a 1:9.4. Larkham's in the mid-9s as well. Ingall's gone back into the lead. His last lap was a 1:9.8. The order at the moment shows Ingall, Murphy, Scaife, then Rodney Forbes, Jason Bright, Mark Larkham, Marcus Ambrose. And we have word through from the pit lane that Garth Tander has been stung for speeding in the pit lane, and he'll cop a stop-go for his trouble. Don't forget, Russell Ingall is our ambassador for DreamDrive.tv. If you haven't been on the web and had a look at this site, I'd recommend it to you. 35,000 people have already enrolled. You can play the game as a V8 Supercar team owner. And see a nice tomato red-faced Russell Ingall there sporting the sticker across his visor.
Do you know, I was just thinking, that HRT car, when they changed the wheel that was laying on the floor, the wheel nut was still in the wheel. Did you notice that?
Then it looked to me that it come off, but we might have a look at a bit of a replay on that one, Barry.
Yeah, because it looked like the wheel nut was still in the wheel, and in that case, how do they keep the nut in the wheel?
Well, that's we won't get into that much, shall we?
Yeah, exactly.
But let's face it, you've got to be pushing the envelope everywhere to get the stops down to that 11-second bracket, and if you lose a second in the pit, you never make it up on the track. You know, talking about how hot Russell looks now, we're talking over 50 degrees, nearly 60-degree C inside the car with hot air blowing in. So extreme. It's like hopping your sauna with a bicycle and start pedaling. Yeah. It really gives you the same benefit.
Yeah, it's aerobic activity in a sauna, and see the rear bumper on Reed's car here looking a bit second-hand. It actually doesn't really seem to me to be posing a great danger, but it's flapping in the breeze there.
As far as pit stop times go, we got Jason Bargwanna was one of the quickest at 13.5 seconds. Murphy and then Ingall. There's the top three quick times that we managed to measure. But also going down pit lane, you should have seen the elbows being used between Todd Kelly and Larry Perkins. Dragged each other all the way down pit lane, rubbing door panels. It was quite a thing to see.
There'll probably be some discussion about that, because they've had to carefully craft the rules to try, and obviously I can't visualise what happened, but to try and avoid a situation where people were racing side by side down pit lane, and it gets very tricky trying to work out who yields and who doesn't. The order at the moment, folks: Ingall, Murphy, Bright, Scaife, Ambrose, Larkham, Bernard, Richards, Forbes we just saw peeling off, and Todd Kelly in the 10.
Well, I'm down here in pit lane with a pretty annoyed Gary Rogers. We're standing by for a stop-go for Garth Tander. What's gone wrong?
Well, we are, Greg. I mean, we did the crime. The wheel nut did cross over the line, but the problem you have is that the people making the decisions on the penalties are a pack of lame brains. I mean, you know, you get 1 week you get penalised with a stop-go penalty, the next week you get 2 points. I don't mind being penalised so long as everyone's penalised equally, but that isn't the case, and it's disappointing. I mean, it's very disappointing for the boys that do all the work, but you know, some things you've got to learn to live with.
Hard luck, Gary.
Thanks, Greg.
There you go, boys. So obviously some of the gear going into the fast lane, that's what's brought the officials' attention to that one.
So it wasn't speeding in the pit lane as we first thought. It was a pit lane infringement, and you can feel for Gary Rogers, because we saw some classic examples, and we debated this after Adelaide, because you know, everybody was told it was going to be stop-go no matter what you did in the pit lane, and then we found that you could do whatever you wanted to in pit lane, and all you got was a post-race fine, which was a joke. So I can understand his anger.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, but the rules are set and you do have to follow them, and some weekends go for you and others they don't, and that's the only way you can look at it.
As long as they implement it on a consistent basis, that's all that anybody asks, isn't it? Then you know what you're in for.
What has been, if there was an infringement, which Gary said, then that's straightforward, and there is a straightforward penalty for it. What he's highlighting is the fact that it wasn't applied in previous races. Lap 19 of 35, and here is the order at the moment. Russell Ingall leads with a margin of 3 seconds over Murphy, Bright, Scaife, Ambrose, Larkham, Bernard, Richards. The FGR Falcon is 8th. Then Bargs, Kelly, Perkins, Morris, Seaton, McLean, Jones and McConville. We've got more of round 4 after this break. 21 and 35. Interesting news. Glenn Seaton's up to 13th from 27th on the grid. They're all chasing this man. Russell Ingall leading at the moment and leading comfortably from nearest Holden rival Greg Murphy. Then the two HRT cars, Bright and Scaife. The quickest man so far, and it's a damn quick time. Marcus Ambrose, which he would have done on those cold, fresh tyres after the change on lap 15, was almost a flat 9. That's pretty speedy in the peak of the heat today. Quite an amazing performance. There's the two red Holden Racing Team cars. Marcus Ambrose really suffered from that slowish pit stop. He's back there at the moment flying the Ford flag. The best of the Fords in 5th place. Then it's Larkham, Bernard and Richards. So there's a little bunch of those guys back there, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th.
I mean, Scaife's the big winner here. I mean, they kept him out pretty much the longest. Quick stop and look where he's running. We're considering he was when he started, way back in the pack. So it's all about strategy, working it, and also quick pace, which he's been able to do all three. So Mark's going extremely well.
You can't have a lot of luck in that situation, okay? I mean, as you say, if the old yellow flag going to come out, or the pace car or whatever.
Yeah, you got to make as much luck as you possibly can, but what can we say? They're always up there.
Yeah, I totally agree. It can't all be luck that they get the luck, can it?
Murphy's going well, the first of the Kiwis, keeping the honour up, which is great. So Greg doing a great job this year. He's change of team, change of car, and quick in all sessions, and proving he's got the muscle to stay right up there.
Marcus Ambrose has just had a pretty quick lap time, as we know, but he's a little disappointed with himself inside the car at the moment. Apparently he overshot the mark at the end of his pit bay for the pit stop, and that cost the team valuable time during their stop.
My pleasure.
Oh, look at this battle here. Glenn Seaton coming up on the back of Paul Morris. We're going to let you go back up to the Shell team. There's probably not a lot of happy faces up there, Paul, but thanks for dropping in tough circumstances today. A quick plug, when we go to New Zealand, that race at Pukekohe is going to be fantastic in November, and I'm sure the Kiwis are getting revved up for that.
Absolutely, we're looking forward to that. Spoken to Greg, we're going to pop over there very shortly and do some releases, and we're really looking forward to Pukekohe in November.
First time the cars have been back there since the end of '96. But don't forget round 5 of the Shell Championship Series. We head south to Canberra, to the nation's capital, for the GMC 400, June 9 and 10. And that is going to be a tremendous weekend. It went off with a huge bang last year, and we're all looking forward to getting back down there. And don't forget, if you're lucky enough to be on the web, check out our website, v8supercar.com.au, with all the information, news, point scores, you name it, details about teams, cars, the whole lot. Look, there's a move on here, or is there? Kelly tries to get down the inside of Bargwanna and nearly got away with it, but not quite in the end.
It's the fight over 9th position. Russell Ingall now 2.9 seconds is the lead over Greg Murphy in second. And the relentless push of those red and white cars, Holden Racing Team, when they're down, they have an amazing ability to claw their way back. Jason Bright in 3rd, Mark Scaife in 4th, Marcus Ambrose 5th, fastest man on the track so far.
You're not going to believe this, guys. Just got word through from the pits that Mark Larkham has been black flagged. When they make their compulsory pit stop, they must remove Velcro off the window of the car to show and demonstrate that they've completed their stop. It hasn't been done, so into the pits he goes.
Oh, what a heartbreak.
Imagine the poor guy in the crew.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd feel so bad having done that. There's a responsibility given to each one of these crewmen, and whoever forgot to take off that Velcro strip will just be kicking himself.
There it is.
There it is. See the yellow thing above the round receive.
The
try that again in English.
The doodah on the thingamajig jig.
Yeah, it was yellow. It was yellow.
Sort of a yellowy day-glow green colour.
It's
What
a
I was
fluoro tag on the glass.
What I was trying to say was the yellow thing they forgot to take off, like, know what I mean?
You're a shocker. Only the way Barry could say it. So Ingall, the gap 2.4 seconds now. Murphy's chopped it down a few tenths. Bright, Scaife, Ambrose, Larkham, who will be very disappointed him to come in for another stop to remove that. David Bernard, consistent performance from the 24-year-old. Best performance so far in the Shell Championship Series. He's running in 7th.
It's not a bad recovery from Glenn Seaton after the damage yesterday. He's millimetres behind Paul Morris at the moment. He's back in 13th. He started way back, I think it was 27th. I have to dig my paperwork out, but that's a long way down the field. And there's Larkham taking his compulsory stop. He's been given a stop-go penalty.
Well, this is going to be a quick one, boys. The team have just told me he plans not to stop at all. If he can keep it almost rolling, they'll rip it off. Here we go. Standing by, stripped on, and Larko is out of here. Speed limit. We'll check that for you, and we'll see if he did actually break the speed limit. Hang on, we'll go over here and have a look. Was he under the limit? Didn't speed. That's the word from the officials.
Got to remind him at that moment when he's got steam coming out of his ears. Very easy to forget the 60k speed limit. It's very strictly enforced.
That was good stuff, Greg. Johnny on the spot there, looking in the back of the radar gun. Get you a job with the police.
2.3 seconds, the gap between first and second, so coming down a little bit each time, but you would suspect.
He gets on well with the police, Greg, does, you know?
Still quick times from Ingle and Murphy in the 1 minute 9 second bracket.
It's very fast pace, isn't it, when you think about it? They got how many laps to go? They got another 10, 9, something like that. Yeah, 9 laps.
Larkham came out 17th after that stop. Gee, that would be so frustrating. He would feel like he's probably got a reasonable car set up. He'd feel pretty happy with his own performance and the pit stop itself. And then to have a little technical error like that can really bring you undone. That gap is closing, I reckon, guys, between first and second. It's down to 1.7 seconds. And there's a little battle going on here between the two Holden Racing Team cars as well. So Ingle, Murphy, Bright, Scaife.
Interesting looking at Ingle's last time, a 1:10.28. Murphy, a 1:96. So
it's a lot to catch a 0.8 of a second.
Took 6/10 of a second off him that time around. I wonder if Ingle's starting to struggle or he's just backing off a bit. We shall find out.
Well, Barry made a point about the furious pace, and although you get off that first set of tyres, whatever it is, you know, somewhere between 10-15 laps into the race, now you're starting to work this second set a little bit longer, a little bit harder. Ambrose is getting closer to these guys as well, and we've not done these longer races here, and we all know that it's going to be particularly hard on the right rear tyre, and you can see why. As the cars come onto the front straight there, it really superheats the tyres and works them hard.
1:10.14 for Ingle.
Right, he's covering.
I know, I just thought that.
He's covering Scaife. These two are in the race here.
Murphy was only 1/10 of a second faster that time around, so Ingle looks like he's responding. The gap's still 1.7 seconds.
Jeff will be, his little heart rate will be jumping up and down in the pit lane there. Jeff Grett, the team manager, and he'll be saying, don't you two clowns run into each other.
I was going to say, this will go down well. Not very well.
Dear. Look at Ambrose just closing on the back there. We'll monitor that gap as well.
Each of these guys is at the top of the championship tree, and they've got their own title and race-winning aspirations. It's a very awkward situation for a team when you've got two guys so close together and doing so well.
Just an indication of how hard Jason Bright is trying. A little replay coming up of coming through that twisty section of the circuit. Look at this.
It looks great in slow motion.
Right up.
Oh, how good does that look?
Just an indication of how hard he's pushing to keep his teammate behind.
This is where Scaife went off in qualifying yesterday on the approach to turn 10. He just...
8 laps to go, Mark. Just keep it clean. No big risks, mate. You know, don't do a move unless it's really safe.
No big risks. And that's a very good bit of information for the driver, because you look at the points buffer that the Holden Racing Team have built up over the first 3 races. If they're consistent and strong throughout the series, they can just protect that buffer all the way to the end.
Now from Who's Got the Best Toys file right here. This is one of the paoli guns, of course, which have reduced the pit stop time so much. But did you know you can spend up to $15,000 tuning these on top of that? That's pulling out the internal workings and replacing them with titanium bits. All part of the mind-blowing quest to be the best in pit lane. But also, the officials have responded and they're thinking of imposing a minimum weight for these guns to hopefully keep some things under control down here in pit lane.
Well, they should definitely do it, shouldn't they, instead of thinking about it, because otherwise it's too late. You know, it's shutting the door when the horse is gone, isn't it?
Always hard to put a cap on competition. The competitive nature of drivers and the engineers and the people that are in this circus will always look for and work hard for an advantage.
Two great battles here between first and second and third and fourth. Real cut and thrust racing. 1:10.28 for Ingle. Murphy did a 1:0.99, so very close battle here.
1:10.6 for Ingle.
Under a second now.
Look at this.
Under a second, the gap between Murphy and Ingle.
Oh, it's
John Faulkner.
I was going to say the big problem for Ingle and Murphy is the lap traffic, because they really have to get out of the way here, don't they? Really early.
This is going to be a test of Russell Ingle's resolve.
That's done Engel a bit of a favour there.
Because Murphy now is really closing in on the back of this Castrol Commodore. He's got plenty of speed in the Kmart car. It's obviously using its tyres well.
6 laps to run.
Yeah, Murphy's speed's actually pretty impressive still in the 9s, and if anything, Russell's is just drifting. Looks like we're going to have a pretty interesting conclusion to this one. 29 of 35. Murphy's on the charge. It's Engel, Murphy, Bright, Scaife. Those 4 guys are all in a serious battle. Then Ambrose, Bernard, Richards and Bargwanna.
Todd Kelly, Larry Perkins in 10th, Paul Morris just outside the top 10. We're heading for a thrilling finish in the race at Hidden Valley. Don't miss it when we come back.
It's a nail-biting time if you're a Russell Ingall and Castrol Holden fan, because Greg Murphy is now hot on his tail. There's 5 laps to go, and he's all over the back of him like a cheap suit at the moment, and Murphy looks determined. He's got a little bit of extra car speed. The last time through, he was 0.4 of a second quicker on that lap, and that's enough to be able to have more than a decent nibble.
Very important tactical battle too in terms of the championship. Coming into this round, Russell Ingall's 4th in the Shell points, Murphy 6th. So Murphy here, a good result here can make a big difference to where he sits on the points table.
Just had a word to the boys here in the Castrol crew. They tell me that Russell may be starting to struggle with tyres in the latter stages of this race, and that's what's obviously giving Greg Murphy the momentum.
So Murphy's got a better balance, which is what we assume.
I'll tell you what, Russell's going to do well if he can hold Greg out for the remaining 4 laps, isn't he? I don't think he's going to be able to do it.
It's a quite extraordinary thing about these TWR Australia Commodores. All 4 of them now, the 2 Holden Racing Team Commodores and Kmart cars, share a common engineering philosophy in a lot of ways, and you can just see the suppleness that shows you. It uses its tyres so well. There's something consistent you see in all these 4 cars, and they're a formidable competition.
Look at this, back markers coming up to back markers.
Remember earlier we saw John Faulkner off in the grass, and we think we've got an explanation for that. And
oh dear me,
he's gone off in a big way there, and this time it's a different one. He's off in the gravel, looped it around and kept it off the tyre wall. Awkward thing here for Greg Murphy is, do you have a go or do you settle for second and grab the points? And he'll have to make a constant assessment, corner by corner. He's looking to pressure Russell, we know he's a tough guy, and he's not the sort of bloke that folds under pressure. If he can get just a sniff of a mistake, he might have a lunge at it, but otherwise he'll just keep the torch on him.
You'd have to say the best chance would be at the end of the straight here, wouldn't you?
4 laps remaining for Russell Ingall. He's going to hang on. He's under enormous pressure here from Greg Murphy.
And Russell has said if you want to do it, you're going to do it the long way.
Yes. There you go. Opens the door, but it's on the wrong side of the house. So Murphy now tries to sniff up the inside. Look at how closely matched here, but Russell looks like he's just struggling a little for grip toward the end of this race. Lap times, well, you imagine they're identical now because Murphy's got his bumper stuffed right into the back of the Castrol car.
I had a feeling that I saw Morris's car on the outside of the road down there at turn 1 before as well, and I can't see him in the order of the top 10 or dozen or so cars. We thought he was going well today, but I think that might have been him in the background.
I think Murph came in later than Ingall, didn't he, for tyres? Wasn't he another lap after or the same lap?
Ambrose, he is in there in 5th. Bright is 3.9, almost 4 seconds behind this battle for the lead. So
look at the extra mid-corner pace of Murphy's car through turn 8. He's actually having to fan the throttle a little bit and just wait because he can't afford, remember, he can't afford to do what Marcus Ambrose did to him at Eastern Creek.
Exactly.
If he tips Russell around, he'll be making a visit to the lane.
he knows the marshals are going to be watching this, the officials are watching this very, very closely. 3 laps remaining. And we hear from pit lane that a bad sportsmanship flag has been shown to Russell Ingall. Probably as a result of too much blocking, I'd imagine.
He's giving him just a little tap there.
So what is Russell going to do now?
What happens with a bad sportsmanship flag then? You get, you basically get nothing, does it, really?
No, but if you press on with it, you'll get a black flag.
Yeah.
So it's an indication to change your driving behaviour, is that right?
Yeah, what they're saying to you is, in our view, you're blocking too aggressively, and if you actually left room, then Murphy has sufficient speed to go by, and the only reason he's not is that you're blocking. So drive on the race line and we'll leave you alone.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're saying that, in Russell's case, he's not driving on the race line and down into turn 1. Another replay here, and it looks like John Faulkner is under siege from Steve Reed. Big time.
That was ambitious, wasn't it?
And that was just after Faulkner had rejoined the track from the last one.
Number 3.
It's been
I bet he said, should I have bothered?
or something like that.
Well, that probably with John Faulkner. The reason why he spun is because he's got a brake bias problem. His rears are locked on and he has no front, so he's out for the day. Well, he's out for race 1 at least.
2 laps remaining for this absorbing battle for the lead.
One of the things that happens here...
Oh, he's right.
Oh, he's lost the rear end. Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh, wow, he's got him deep there, but...
Actually, I reckon he's in trouble. He's in trouble. That gap was massive. I think he's going to lose second place.
Oh, he has.
Gone. Oh, the luck.
Can you believe it? Look at the cabin temperature in Murphy's car.
What's going on here?
I don't know. I can't make it out.
He just sudden loss of speed. Might hear a radio message here in a minute.
I think I know what he said then.
Can you imagine the frustration for Russell Ingall? Some sort of mechanical failure. And you wouldn't want to hear what he's saying there.
Exactly. I was going to say, oh, what a shame.
So Murphy inherits the lead. He had the pace. He was looking pretty strong.
And you always feel if only that had happened on the first lap instead of 1 lap to go, that's bad luck.
Just back to that Faulkner thing, guys, that this place is notoriously tough on brakes at the other end. If you don't have good ducting or you've got some other little problem going on with your brakes, you can actually cook the fronts, and then what happens, of course, is the rears just lock on. And away you go. So this is a disaster for Ingall and amazing for Ted.
Oh, look at this.
Oh, that's wheel
like a wheel or a broken axle or something. Look at that. He's going to try and finish. He wants to get it across the line if he can. He's got 1 more lap to complete. 2.9 Ks of Hidden Valley, but that's a chronic vibration in that car.
Is that my imagination, or is it? I think it looks like the axle's sliding.
Yeah, maybe he broken a Watts link or something.
It looks like it. No, I'm sure that the thing's moved.
Well, Marcus Ambrose is closing right in the back of the Holden Racing Team Commodores, but it's Eastern Creek all over again. TWR Australia. Commodores 1, 2, 3. Only the order's slightly different.
I have to say, Mark Osler said that before the race.
He did. And we said, no. Look at this. This is a great performance from Greg Murphy as he comes down towards the finish line area, and he finishes with lots of open space. Checkered flag out, and look at that gap back to Jason Bright. Well done, Murph. And then Mark Scaife. I thought Marcus Ambrose did a good job to get back and recover from that slow stop. Good result also for David Bernard, and Stephen Richards kept him honest all the way home as well, and the crew in the background there congratulating Greg Murphy on what was a fine drive.
It's going to be interesting to watch the future years of V8 supercar racing. When you look at the phenomenal speed of the Kmart cars and the Holden Racing Team cars, I'm sure there'll be some other Commodore teams in future saying, hey, can we come under the TWR Australia umbrella as well? Which is nothing new. I mean, it happens in NASCAR. You've got 3 or 4 teams operating out of the one workshop. And boy, when you see the speed of these cars and the technical excellence of them, why wouldn't you?
I wonder what happened to Ingall's thing. That's...
Well, I just had a word to the guys in the Castrol Racing team. Some very disappointed faces indeed. They believe it's drivetrain problems of some sort. Russell can't pinpoint at this point in time just exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's not a rear suspension thing. It's maybe it's something related to tail shaft or something in the diff. Who knows? You never guess from the commentary box. Interesting to see Scaife with his gear off there. I mean, it would be unbelievably hot, but I shouldn't dob him in. But I doubt whether the race director would be too happy with that, because they're very stringent about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually, in the States a few years ago, did the same thing, and I had to. I had to have a stand-up blue with the race director over there. But Ambrose has joined the queue, so maybe they'll have strength in numbers on that argument. But you could hardly blame them for today. It would be stinking in the car.
We were just checking our temperature sensor on Mark Scaife's car. It was 54 degrees temperature inside the cockpit. Can you believe that? 54 degrees.
That's starting to get to the edge of the outside of human ability and the ability to cope with those kinds of temperatures. Wow, what a day. There's always something happening in V8 Supercar. It was all happening for Greg Murphy in that one. He's just scooped the points with a win from Jason Bright, then Mark Scaife, Marcus Ambrose, the first of the Fords, his teammate Dave Bernard next, then Richards, Bargwanna and Kelly.
Larry Perkins and Glenn Seaton in 10th. Brad Jones, good effort that. Aussie male car's been on fire in practice. They managed to claw their way back with a consistent performance. Cameron McConville too, 16th.
Then Tander, and he had a tough day with that stop. Then Richards, 4th, Romano, Longhurst, Ingall, Tratt and Mecklem.
Starting to get down to the guys who have dropped a lap or did not finish. We'll be back after the break. Shell Championship Series on Network 10.